No heroes stood a chance against the Demon King's immense power, and the human race got cornered. 100 barrier mages stepped forward to form a barrier against the demon realm to contain the army, while the generation of heroes continued facing the Demon King, but no one succeeded. 30 years later, the protagonist of our story, Blake, finally wakes up and gets ready to check on the barrier. He's a bit surprised that the monsters are still so active. Blake pours in his power but notices the barrier is growing weaker for some reason. He gets confused and wonders why the magic power it needs has increased as well. He hopes a hero has finally cleaned up the mess. Inside the demon castle, a hero charges towards the Demon King, and as they both go all out, the Demon King begins coughing up blood. It's hard for him to believe he got defeated, but as he finally drops dead, the hero smiles and celebrates her victory. A beam of light covers the whole castle. Blake's jaw drops as he sees the monsters dying. He assumes the hero finally succeeded, so the miasma is finally disappearing. He feels amazed and believes the Demon King finally died. That's the only reason why all the monsters have begun vanishing. Blake feels relieved that he helped the human race achieve peace somehow. He wonders what kind of reward he's about to get, but as a month passes, a few soldiers appear and aggressively inform the protagonist they don't need him anymore. He feels confused, but the rude soldiers call him a greedy fraud. Despite trying to clarify and point out his efforts, they ignore all his words and believe he's just a useless, weak barrier mage. He gets kicked out, even though he served for almost his whole life. He feels crappy but guesses he has no choice other than to return to his old village. He enters his village's adventure guild, but gets a few crappy coins for serving all his life. The guy complains, but the old receptionist insults his job and orders him to shut up. The protagonist feels crappy as he knows the money won't be enough to survive. He begins questioning his whole life and wonders if the barrier he maintained had no purpose. The next day, he gathers courage to find a job at the guild, no matter how crappy it is. He requests the old hag for some work and assures her he's willing to do anything. But the cocky old hag reminds him that barrier mages are completely useless. A few other adventurers laugh at his situation and make fun of his entire life. The protagonist goes silent, but suddenly a bunch of royal knights barge into the guild, surprising everyone. They ask about a mage named Blake, which makes the men question what's going on. The protagonist raises his hand anxiously. They reveal it's the hero's orders and ask him to return with them. The ones who were insulting him earlier are stunned to hear this, but Blake agrees, so the knights request him to sit inside the carriage. As he leaves the village, the guy still feels worried and questions why he got summoned out of nowhere. He recalls saving the girl once but doubts she still remembers what happened. He enters the capital and feels amazed by the view. After entering the castle, he continues to contemplate, but his eyes widen when the hero greets him with a bright smile. She excitedly asks if he still remembers when he saved her from monsters. He confirms he does, which makes her happy. She shows her gratitude, but he tries brushing it off as nothing. Alice excitedly shares that her companions wanted to show their gratitude as well, but all of them are busy with responsibilities. With sparkling eyes, the girl asks what he's planning to do next, assuming he's an important figure now, but he laughs and anxiously says he's still unsure about it. Alice excitedly invites him to join the Royal Magician Corps, but Gunther, a 5th Division captain, reminds her that he's just a barrier mage, so she shouldn't lump him with real magicians. Alice defends the protagonist and points out his efforts, but the cocky guy believes the monsters were just too afraid to break in. He believes barriers are only capable of blocking a little bit of mana, so they're completely useless. The protagonist remembers their reputation was less shitty 30 years ago. He feels frustrated as he worked so hard for no reason. Gunther calls him an old man and lets everyone know he doubts the guy has any skills, but Alice speaks up for Blake. The cocky captain challenges Blake to beat him in a fight. He believes an old man can't be a part of their group unless he's ready to win this battle. Alice asks if Blake is ready. The guy doesn't trust himself, but she believes he's going to win. At the training grounds, the protagonist complains and regrets coming, but the cocky captain introduces himself and unleashes his fire magic as he warns Blake not to cry later. The attack hits our protagonist head-on, so the scumbag's lackeys begin celebrating. Gunther continues his narcissistic behavior, but suddenly learns he hasn't succeeded yet. Blake expresses confusion, while the cocky guy finds it hard to believe, as he was expecting the protagonist to drop dead instantly. The delusional guy still maintains his confidence and gets ready to throw a serious attack. He challenges Blake to survive what's coming and ruthlessly throws multiple attacks all at once. The observers get concerned seeing such explosions, but the protagonist remains unfazed. He assumes the guy's still not going all out, as the power is too weak. Gunther hopes he finally died, but as the smoke clears, Blake comes out unscathed, shocking the guy. In disbelief, he anxiously laughs and believes Blake's only good at protecting himself, but he can't even throw any attacks, so it's meaningless. The protagonist takes his words seriously and throws a barrier towards his face, sending him flying away. The others get shocked, but Gunther gets back on his feet and frustratingly calls it unfair, as barriers are impossible to move. Blake proves him wrong, but the guy still finds it hard to believe. The protagonist reminds him that he's been putting up barriers for 30 years now, so it's easy. He wonders if it's cheating, but the narcissistic guy hears chatter about him and calls it unfair. He realizes he's stuck, so the only way out is to kill Blake. His men assist him by attacking from behind, but it gets blocked automatically. Blake doesn't understand what happened, but Gunther's face becomes colorless as he finds out the barriers got activated on their own. Alice reminds the captain that he won't be getting any more chances. The desperate scumbag doesn't admit defeat. He unleashes everything he has to avoid falling in Alice's eyes. The observers anxiously run away as they don't want to get caught. Gunther throws the huge attack, hoping Blake dies, but Alice wholeheartedly trusts the protagonist can stop it. She recalls how he saved her the last time and watches Blake effortlessly defeat the cocky scumbag. The guy falls down on his knees as he realizes his magic power is nothing. Alice announces Blake's victory and believes he deserves to enter the Special Corps now. Gunther tries talking back, but she reminds him about the protagonist's achievements. The scumbag begins questioning the other barrier mages, but his investigator informs him that all of them left. He shares that most of them died, and some just left their duties, so everyone disappeared slowly, meaning Blake was handling everything alone. The protagonist finally understands that's why it was taking him more effort. Gunther calls him a fraud, saying it's impossible to handle such a large area alone, as it was bigger than the kingdom itself. He doesn't believe it, but Alice anxiously smiles and realizes Blake's far more amazing than her expectations. Someone appears and questions why it's so noisy. Gunther recognizes it's the first unit's captain, Lancelot. It's his first time seeing the top captain. Lancelot demands an explanation, so Alice fills him in on the situation. The guy understands everything and learns Gunther lost the fight. The scumbag tries brushing it off with some stupid excuses, but Lancelot shuts him up with a cold stare. He allows Blake to join the group, as he proved his skills. The others are still unsure about letting a barrier mage in, but the protagonist feels happy he got such a position. He starts doubting his skills, but Alice congratulates him and believes it will be easy for him. She suggests they should throw a party, but Lancelot reminds her about her duties and the men drag her away. The red-haired guy questions why Alice is acting so lovey-dovey with Blake. The protagonist assures him there's nothing, but the serious captain still warns him to keep his distance from Alice. Gunther watches the interaction and grits his teeth in frustration. A few days pass, and our protagonist reaches the dormitory and looks around for his room. He hears chatter about his age and starts feeling awkward, so he continues looking for his room. The guy finds it, but as he enters, Sven, his new roommate, questions who he is. He introduces himself and shares his story, but Sven calls it bullshit. Blake admits no one would believe a guy like him, but wonders why Sven's freaking out about it. The kid starts complaining about having an old man as his roommate. The protagonist feels sorry, but Sven embarrassingly takes back his words since it's not Blake's fault. He points out the protagonist has messy hair, so he decides to cut it for the guy. The kid finishes changing Blake's look and suddenly remembers they're late for training. They both prepare and leave. Blake's teammates, Therese and Clara, wonder why there's an old man joining them. Blake anxiously introduces himself, and as expected, Teresa begins complaining about his age and calls it creepy. Clara calls her rude, but Blake understands the hate since he's the only old guy. He introduces himself to everyone. The newcomers talk about the rumors but believe it's all a lie. The others doubt he defeated the vice captain, while Sven anxiously worries about his career as he learns the old man is a barrier mage. Gunther's eyes burn with the desire for revenge. The announcer explains they're all new, so their divisions will be assigned after the results. Blake realizes he still has a long way ahead. The guy continues and announces they'll hold a survival test in the Mecha Forest for the next 2 weeks. The new recruits begin complaining, as they know how dangerous the forest can be. The announcer calls our man unlucky and orders him to hurry up. Sven admits defeat before the test even starts, since he's aware it's not a place for people like him. He begs Blake to do his best, and they all pack their bags. The team gets inside carriages to reach the starting point. Gunther watches everything from a distance and smiles wickedly. After reaching the forest, Sven screams and wonders where he is. The wimpy guy doesn't understand why they're starting from a mountaintop. He guesses they got unlucky and starts acting like a crybaby. He was hoping his life would sail smoothly after joining the Royal Corps, but it was all bullshit. Teresa shuts his pathetic mouth and orders him to act like a leader. He continues arguing with her, but Blake suggests they should look at the map first. The teens stop arguing, and they all learn they can still somehow manage if they rush. Blake politely shares that they should begin moving. The others agree, as they have no other options. They make their way through the harsh terrain. The others have a hard time carrying their stuff, but Clara notices Blake's making it look so easy. She guesses he might have some experience after all. After a few hours, the team finally reaches the terrifying forest. The miasma feels so dense that any normal person would die, but they remain unaffected as they're all trained magicians. Teresa and Sven check the map to head toward their goal. Blake hears Sven mention the dragon's level. The kid explains monsters are divided into 10 levels to specify their strength. The old man thanks him for explaining, which makes the brat feel proud. The team begins moving again, but as a few goblins appear out of nowhere, Sven pulls out his fire blasts and confidently moves forward to handle things alone. He kills one but gets hurt, so Teresa jumps in and defeats the other two goblins before they can beat the cocky teen. Clara heals Sven, so he apologizes and wonders why Blake stood there instead of helping. As the team moves forward again, a monster tries attacking Sven, but the protagonist intentionally falls down to get their attention and begins apologizing. He uses his barrier magic and suggests they should take a new path he just found. They all continue following Blake, who secretly handles the monsters behind their backs. Clara hears something but sees nothing behind her. Blake continues to guide them toward water, and they all finally stop to rest and sleep. The old man keeps guarding the area and sends a monster flying after it tries attacking his team. Sven wakes up from the sound, but he assures the kid to continue sleeping as he doesn't mind staying awake. As they all wake up, Sven feels suspicious as things have been sailing a little too smoothly. Clara begins contemplating it as well. She remembers the rumors and guesses he might be the reason why they're only seeing weak monsters. It's hard to believe, but Teresa calls it perfect, and since they can't manage to fight after moving around so much, they all rush toward the dragon's nest. At the castle, Gunther believes the protagonist probably died by now since he arranged the most perfect plan to achieve his wish. He doubts they can survive against the dragon, even if they somehow reach the location. At the dragon's nest, Sven screams in fear as he lays eyes on the level 4 monster. Teresa warns them to run, as it can destroy a village with its immense power. She tries but realizes they're all completely blocked. Sven falls down on his knees and almost pisses himself in fear. He doubts they'll win while the girls tremble in fear. The monster throws a fire attack, but the protagonist blocks it with his barrier and saves the day. The girls open their eyes and find the barrier protecting their lives. They get confused while Sven acts like a crybaby and still believes they'll die. Blake steps out and assures everyone to just wait. Sven screams and tries to stop the man, but Blake leaves. The kid cries and assumes Blake's trying to be a decoy since it's impossible to defeat such a dragon. Teresa thinks calmly and requests everyone to follow her, as they need to escape using this opportunity. Sven rejects the idea and remains determined to stay on the old man's side, but Teresa reminds him it's not a joke. Clara suddenly notices the flames disappearing. They wonder what's happening as they see the old man killing the dragon effortlessly. Their jaws drop, but the fight doesn't end as Blake gets attacked by another one. He dodges the attack and uses his barrier magic to throw an insane punch, completely wrecking the other one as well. He lands and finishes the fight. The old man feels nostalgic since he used to destroy these lizards back in the day. The others are too stunned to say anything. They begin gazing at the old man and realize he was hiding such insane strength. Teresa excitedly asks how he learned to move magic barriers to attack. Blake feels confused since he believes what he did isn't extraordinary. Clara silently thinks about the fight and learns barriers can be used for a lot more than just a shield. She guesses the old man might be hiding something special. The next day, Gunther laughs maliciously and believes his enemy dropped dead. He knows his plans were flawless, so there's no chance the old man will survive. Out of nowhere, Blake and his teammates appear and achieve first place in the race, shocking the scumbag. The cocky guy frustratingly questions what's happening. He tries calming himself down and assumes they ran back like little wimps, which means they'll fail the test. The examiner feels amazed to learn they brought such a huge salamander fang, which is a first in their history. Gunther sweats anxiously and finds it hard to believe, but the examiner praises their team while the others wonder how they could have encountered a salamander on such a route. Sven feels amazing, but Teresa reminds him the protagonist did most of the work. Blake tries to be humble, calling it false and believing it was teamwork. The others change their perspective about Blake really quickly, but he starts focusing on what happened and doubts it was just a mere coincidence since they faced suspiciously more difficulties. Gunther grips his fists with rage in his eyes and promises he's going to get even with the protagonist. After a few days, the examiner announces they will have a competition this time. Blake's team leaves others behind, and they all decide to go to a different training ground to avoid the crowd. Gunther smiles maliciously and follows them for a chance. At the ground, Sven challenges the old man, but Gunther surprises them by stepping in and deciding to instruct their training. Sven and Teresa wonder why he appeared out of nowhere, but the guy orders them to stop talking and get in formation. He keeps Blake out of it and starts training the other three. Gunther hits Teresa without mercy, but Clara is able to heal her wounds. The evil scumbag reminds them to get serious, as the fight is just starting. Sven tries to get up against him while Gunther pushes Blake out of it since he only wants to train the other three. The look on the old guy's face satisfies the rat, so he continues ordering around the kids and begins unleashing huge fire magic to make them follow his instructions. Without any mercy, he throws the huge attack at the kids. Gunther proudly looks at Blake and tries making an excuse for his actions. He assures the old man that the kids will still survive, but he admits his training might have gotten out of hand. As the smoke finally clears up, the evil rat starts looking forward to the kids' pathetic state, but finds them unharmed. His smile drops instantly while Sven notices the old man is behind these barriers. Gunther anxiously wonders what happened, and a crowd of other captains begins gathering around the ground. The observers notice the situation, but Gunther covers it with his pathetic lies and assures them he's almost done. Sven and the others call it unfair, but Clara remains determined to win against the scumbag. She motivates everyone, which puts a smile on the old man's face. The kids agree to continue the fight, surprising the observers as well. Seeing them support the kids, Gunther realizes it's too late for him to stop now. Clara uses her magic to heal the party so they move forward for the victory, but the evil scumbag starts going all out and throws multiple attacks to finish them off. Somehow the kids jump out of it unscathed with the old man's help. Gunther calls it unfair, but they continue throwing their attacks and hit the evil rat, hearing the guy scream in pain. Sven celebrates his victory, but Gunther loses his patience and in extreme rage, decides to just end their lives. The teens get terrified, but Blake jumps in to protect them. Observers call Gunther out for his bullshit, but he continues to spit out more lies. One of the captains believes he's been bullying the team because of his personal grudge. He punishes the evil rat and steals his position of vice captain. Gunther's face becomes colorless. He doesn't understand why he's the one suffering, even though it's all Blake's fault. Later, the party sits for some tea, and they all discuss what happened earlier. Teresa frustratingly assumes even the first training was probably a part of his plans. They all call him an evil rat, but Blake feels bad he ended up dragging down his teammates. Sven assures the guy not to think about it, but Teresa agrees it was somewhat Blake's fault. They all begin to question his strength as they've never seen such barriers before, but the old man has nothing to say. A woman appears and reveals she's here on Edda's orders, so she wants Blake to come with her. He gets confused, but she drags him away while the teens recognize Edda's name and wonder what's happening. At the Magic Research Institute, the Witch of Wisdom, Edda, greets the protagonist. So, he pats her head and feels glad she's all right. Edda's servant pulls him back and orders him to show more respect, so the old man apologizes. Edda assures him it's all right and explains the reason she called him is that she needs his power to imprison a few monsters. Since monsters emit miasma and normal cages are nothing for them, their research is not progressing forward. She hopes they can capture a few and use them to research various things that might even help them develop plans against the miasma. Blake knows only the heroes have the goddess's protection, so there's no one besides them who can enter the demon realm. Edda believes Blake can help them capture monsters, but her servants laugh at the old man and doubt his capabilities. Blake agrees to it and believes monsters of level 5 won't be any trouble. The servant frustratingly insults the old man and reminds him of his low status, but Blake assures her he can fulfill the request. The girls don't believe him, but Edda shuts their mouths with her terrifying gaze, so the servants begin apologizing. Edda assures him not to worry about his responsibilities and count the whole thing as a training mission. He thanks her with a smile, while the servant wonders how they could be so close. She decides to protect her lady, and her eyes send shivers down the protagonist. He feels worried about the whole situation. Edda announces they're all going toward the abandoned mine, so she wants everyone to begin moving. Edda and Blake lead her whole party toward the demon realm. She feels glad they were able to meet again and wonders if he has seen anyone else so far. The old man shares that he met with Alice, who's doing all right. Edda laughs and calls Alice a cheerful person. Her servant feels jealous seeing them get along. Edda recalls she would have died if Blake hadn't found her that time. The old man was hunting in the Forest of Death once, and by pure luck, he was able to save Alice from monster attacks. She requested him to help her teammates, so Blake wasted no second and tried finding the others. Edda was found surrounded by monsters, but he saved her too. The forest ruins people's senses, which is the reason they all got separated. Edda admits she would have died without the old man's help. She thanks him for it, but the guy tries to be humble and brushes it off. He notices she's living a good life now. The guy feels a bit jealous, as he was alone most of his life. He guesses Edda used to play as a kid too, but she feels embarrassed about it and reminds him she's a natural-born genius who never did such childish things. A few days later, they all reach the abandoned mine and find that the miasma looks more dangerous than expected. The servants feel terrified, so Edda asks Blake to put a barrier around everyone. He claims he can move the shields, but the servants find it hard to believe. He pulls out a barrier and starts moving inside. The servants believe he probably died, but Blake comes back and wonders what they're waiting for, shocking them all. Edda assures them to trust him and orders everyone to move inside. The researchers remain unaffected despite the dense miasma. It's their first time seeing moving barriers, but the servant still acts cocky and calls his abilities normal. They find no monsters inside the mine, but Edda spots a miasma pool. The old man assumes there's definitely a monster inside. She explains that even cursed objects or natural phenomena can create a miasma pool, and sometimes strong beasts are born from this. The miasma can produce monsters that continue to emit more miasma and create even more monsters. The Demon King is at the top of this cycle. She still doesn't understand why, but shares that all the monsters disappear if the source is destroyed, which is why half of the demon realm got wiped out when the Demon King dropped dead. But not all monsters disappeared. She is confident they can counter this once they properly research miasma, so their journey is important. Edda accidentally slips, but Blake grabs her before she falls. Since the ground is hard to see, he lets her know he can carry her if she wants. Her servant bumps in and orders him to treat her with respect. Etta assures the old man she's fine, so they continue and reach the room emitting the miasma. A minotaur monster screams and terrifies the whole party. Blake gets ready to capture it, but Etta's servant orders him to just stay back. She and the other party members throw all the attacks they have, but the monster just gets riled up even more. It remains unaffected and screams loudly, so the whole party steps back and starts hesitating. Etta scolds her servant for the carelessness and believes they don't stand a chance without Blake, but the servant throws everything onto Etta, and they all start begging her to save them. She grits her teeth but realizes she has no choice. So, the witch faces the Minotaur alone, despite being terrified. The monster charges forward to attack her, but a giant barrier stops it in its path, shocking the party. Blake holds the monster down, but Etta's oblivious servant still tries getting in his way. Etta screams at her to stop and reminds her that they brought Blake for this reason. She points toward the sleeping monster and shows everyone that Blake's barrier purified the miasma, so the monster isn't moving anymore. The servant finds it hard to believe, while Etta observes the impressive barrier and admits even she can't achieve such results with her powers. She thanks Blake and orders everyone to get ready, as they're about to return. She requests Blake to carry the monster for her and begins walking. He notices her sad expression and realizes something happened. Etta praises the whole team and thinks about starting the research. She finds the barriers useful since she saw the old man carry such a huge monster so effortlessly, but she's still unsure if it can be maintained. The protagonist reveals it works only when he's around. Otherwise, the barrier will fall apart without the magic supply. Etta tries coming up with a solution, but her servant jumps in again and believes Etta should just use her own magic instead. Blake solves the issue and pulls out a magic circle, pissing off the servant even more. He assures her the circle can maintain the barrier while he's gone. Etta recalls seeing something similar near the demon realm. She believes it's an impressive idea, so she thanks him for the compliments and shares that he created it when he was a little kid, around 930 years ago. The demon realm's miasma was wrecking everything, so barrier mages were gathered to do something about it. In the beginning, the mages didn't even have the chance to rest, so he came up with this circle that could maintain the barrier for a long period. This way, the mages were able to take breaks, and with 100 mages maintaining it, a barrier was created around the demon realm. But with time, most mages left, so he was the only one doing the job. They finally understand that's why the circle was demanding so much power. His story leaves everyone speechless. Etta frustratingly questions how he could be so humble, but the guy shrugs it off and pours his power into the circle to set a magic barrier around the monster. He finishes the job and guesses it'll hold on for a few hours, but the old man assures them he'll try staying close until the research is over. She thanks him for all the help and begins the research to understand miasma better. After hours of persistent work, all the servants and assistants go home. Blake thinks about it, and Etta tells him there's a room he can use any time to rest, so he doesn't need to be here unless the barrier acts up. He feels bad about her, but she remains determined to continue with her job since she wants to help the citizens feel safer. He decides to stay with her, but Etta reminds him that it's unnecessary. He comes up with an excuse, so she lets him do whatever. The old man stays with her. After a week of research, everyone leaves as usual, but this time Blake gets up as well and goes out for a bit. He approaches Etta's servant and wonders why they all leave so early. She orders him to mind his own business, but the old man thinks she should help her master with the research. The woman calls her master a genius and doubts she can be useful to her. Etta is amazing, not just with magic but with research as well, so it's hard to keep up with her. The woman thinks she's doing enough and wants to avoid getting in her way. She advises Blake to go home if he has no reason to stay and leaves. The old man goes back and sees his friend sleeping on the desk. He puts a blanket on Etta out of consideration. After a few days, Etta lets everyone leave for the lunch break but decides to stay in the lab herself. Blake calls her out for it and suggests she should take a proper break as well, but Etta shares she was planning on resting today. She thanks him for his consideration and assures him to stop worrying so much. Blake decides to go eat something. Inside the cafeteria, the researchers enjoy their food and begin discussing Etta. They all believe she's an amazing genius who's able to do everything alone, so they shouldn't get in her way. Blake hears them talk about Etta's achievements. They believe she could even capture monsters alone, but Blake ruined her spotlight. The servant suggests they should leave things to their master, and as long as they follow her lead, the kingdom will keep progressing. Blake calls them wrong, which offends the researchers. He believes putting all the burden onto her is extremely childish since she's doing so much as a 13-year-old. Her servant gets angry and reminds him not to call her a child because Etta is better than all of them. The others agree with her and call his words stupid. Blake admits she's talented and can outperform adults, but he reminds them that she's still just 13. He recalls noticing her enviously looking at normal kids, and she even felt terrified against such a huge monster. He knows she's a genius kid, but the guy believes she's just trying her best to fulfill their stupid expectations out of kindness. He questions their surety because they've never even had an honest conversation with the little girl. He doubts they ever tried to understand her for once, even though they all claim to be her helpers. He leaves everyone speechless, so the researchers just avoid him and leave the cafeteria. Etta ends up hearing his words. She comes inside but completely ignores the old man. At night, Blake contemplates what happened. Suddenly, Etta knocks on the door and enters the room to have a moment with Blake. Blake helps her feel comfortable with a cup of coffee and his jacket. She thanks the old man and feels warm, so she finishes the coffee and apologizes for what happened earlier. He calls it his fault for not minding his own business and wonders if her followers are always this weird. She shares she was excited at first, but things began to change over time. The adults started calling her a genius, and life was easy, but they suddenly started slacking off. She doesn't understand why people around her always change their behavior like this. Etta was born into a completely average family with nothing special to offer, but she was able to learn a language at a young age. Just by reading the magic books, she felt interested and began learning. Her parents thought she was a genius, so they provided whatever education they could to help her get better. She was happy about things as well, and the villagers started acknowledging her talents. She used to be known as a genius, so everyone had high hopes for her. She ended up missing her childhood just so she could grow up as fast as possible. Magicians are usually expected to either handle combat or research, but she had to learn both. She did all that by the age of 6, and slowly her desperation increased because she wanted to make the people around her proud. She proved she was a true genius, which is why she always tried her best. She becomes speechless for a second. Blake mentions she's afraid of monsters. She's surprised he noticed, so he explains he saw it in her eyes when they were capturing the Minotaur earlier. She admits it and shares she finds monsters terrifying. Even when she was in the heroes party, she never fought anyone directly and just endured the fear while supporting everyone from behind. She tells him there's no way she can ever handle them alone because she's genuinely terrified. Blake calls it normal and relates to it. He reveals he just tries to hide it and fights anyway, otherwise he won't survive. That's how he became used to fighting monsters. Etta hopes she can be like him, but Blake believes she's fine as she is right now. The girl anxiously reminds him that all the adults around her expect such great things, so she needs to try harder. She starts trembling in worry and thinks everyone's going to leave her if she can't face monsters herself. The little girl starts overthinking and sees horrible visions of people being disappointed in her. She covers her ears and promises she'll be good and act like they want so they don't leave her. The old man pats her head and promises he's never going to leave. He knows she has suffered a lot and still remains strong, so he praises her with a gentle smile. Etta bursts into tears and starts crying uncontrollably. She hugs him tightly and lets out her desires to play outside and meet her parents. She doesn't mind research but wants people she can rely on because she can't face monsters. The old man assures her it's normal to cry in front of adults, even though the others expect her to act seriously all the time. He understands people expect a lot from her, but he tells Etta to stop trying so hard. He promises he's going to be there if she's ever in trouble or needs someone to help her. She asks if that's fine, so he repeats his words for her. The girl thanks him and finally sleeps soundly for once. The old man remembers it's the same as before. A few years ago, after saving Etta, he brought her back to rest and saw her hand shaking while she was crying in her sleep. He comforted her and held her hand the whole night. Just like before, he holds the little girl in his arms and assures her he's not going to leave her side. A few days later, he meets up with Etta dressed up in fancy clothes and hopes he didn't make her wait. A few days ago, Etta asked everyone for their help. Despite being confused, her followers listened and helped her with every step. The next few days were exactly the same. While researching at night, Etta suddenly got fed up and stopped for the day. She rushed towards the old man and hugged him tightly, as she was tired of working. He comforted her like usual and patted her head to show his love. The little girl demanded more pats and hugs from him, which made the guy assume she was tired of her routine. He decided to come up with something and asked if she wanted to do something on her day off. She excitedly shared that she wanted to go out with him. In the present, Blake meets the girl and takes her to the market. She's shocked to see the crowd of people and shares that it is her first time seeing it since she never had time for herself. He calls it fine and thinks she's going to love her first time. They visit a few shops together, and Etta joins a few kids to have more fun. As the sun's about to set, they both come across a jewelry shop, so Blake lets her choose whatever she likes. The little girl has a hard time choosing, so Blake grabs something and assures her not to worry, since he wants to give her a present. The guy pays for it himself. She thanks him for the gift and starts admiring the necklace. The shop owner calls him a great father, which makes both of them laugh. They end the day smiling and giggling. A few days later, Etta gathers everyone and apologizes, as she failed to somehow counter the miasma. She shares that she changed her perspective on barriers and believes they can be great at blocking the miasma. So from today, she's going to gather all the mages she can and advance a different research on barrier magic. The little girl requests Blake to lend his help once more, and he agrees. Suddenly, the whole crowd apologizes for their behavior and not helping out as much as they could. They all admit they ended up throwing everything onto the little girl and neglected their responsibilities to support her as much as possible. The crowd apologizes to Blake as well and admits they were trying to protect their pathetic egos by constantly insulting him. Etta and Blake forgive them for it, but she admits it can be hard when she has to do everything alone, so they should definitely put in more effort and help her the best they can. Her servant thanks her for the forgiveness, while the others properly apologize to Blake since they finally understand how useful barriers can be. They all acknowledge that barrier magic is amazing. Etta wonders why they suddenly apologized. Her servant thanks Blake for it and accepts that they always knew Etta was having a hard time with things, and they even knew it was somewhat their fault, but they just never had the courage to face the truth. But after the old man scolded them, he was able to cheer her up, so they felt motivated to speak up finally and be honest with Etta. The servant calls the old man and his techniques amazing. Etta agrees with her and feels grateful for everything. Everyone comes out to say their goodbyes. Etta promises she's going to keep him updated on the progress. Blake looks forward to it. The little girl whispers something into his ear, and he happily agrees to it with a smile. The protagonist finally leaves the research facility and wonders if the others are doing fine. His teammates get angry at him for making them worry. He apologizes and fills them in on what happened. They're shocked to hear his story and start questioning him since he's close to 2 members of the hero's party. They realize he's not an ordinary person. The old man asks what they did while he was gone. Sven excitedly shares he's going to reveal the results of his hard work tomorrow. The next day, at the training grounds, Blake's teammates begin their practice. But just after a bit of training, they start feeling tired. Sven feels frustrated, but Teresa believes he should be more patient. The observers make fun of them as they're all dropouts, but Sven ignores their words. Teresa and Clara agree with the other kids since it's the truth, but Sven gets angry at them for being so hopeless. He calls them pathetic for relying on the old man every time, but Teresa tells him he misunderstood. Sven remains determined to never give up and leaves. Teresa feels down about everything, and the old man notices the hopelessness building up. Later, Sven begs the old man to teach him magic, or else his life will be over. Blake wonders why he's acting so desperate, so the teen explains he's the only magician in his family. He needs to fulfill his parents' expectations as they're poor nobles with harsh lives. He wants to make lots of money with his strength and help everyone live an easy life. Blake understands his words but reminds him he's just a barrier mage, so the kid has no options left. Blake agrees to teach the guy some combat techniques instead. He decides to start tomorrow, making the teen happy. Sven thanks him as much as he can. The next day, Sven gets shocked to see the other two waiting as well. Teresa and Clara are motivated to get better in combat. Blake appears and shares he decided to invite everybody since they all share the same desire. Sven feels mad about it while Clara remains observant so she can learn how the old man grew so strong. Blake gives her a smile so she instantly looks the other way and tries to control her blush. At the mecha forest, Sven fights a few lizards to train and grow stronger. He notices one coming from behind, but the old man saves his life and advises him to stay cautious. A huge army of lizards appears out of nowhere, terrifying the girls, but Blake decides to give them an example and explains they should go with a wide-range attack in such a situation. He destroys the whole army with just one attack, shocking his students. They question his insane strength since he was only focusing on maintaining the barriers all his life. Blake calls it a long story and shares that when he was only 9, because of his insane potential, he was taken to the demon realm. All the barrier mages were assigned to stop the demon realm's monsters, but they didn't have any real resources or wages. Soon they were abandoned. Since the barrier needed attention at all times, Blake couldn't move at all and barely got time to sleep. As his resources were running out, Blake became fed up and reached his limit. He decided to develop a magic circle. His students doubted he'd succeed, but the protagonist surprised them and shared that he managed to come up with one in a few days. After that, he finally slept properly and used whatever money he had to have a merchant help him distribute the circle to everyone. He still didn't have any real food supply, so he entered a nearby forest once, but he had to quickly escape because of the terrifying monsters. He used to get rations every few months, but once they stopped coming, he had no choice but to go back to the forest. This time, he actually managed to escape with some food, but because of the miasma, he had to remain cautious and purify everything. Since his barriers were completely useless, he decided to gain strength, so he learned more barrier techniques and continued training hard. One day, he became capable of restraining the monsters for a few minutes. This was a huge improvement for him, and after 3 years, Blake had perfected his techniques to the point where the monsters couldn't hurt him anymore. He was satisfied with his growth but still didn't have any techniques to actually kill a monster. His barriers were pretty useful, but he had no idea how to move them, so little Blake worked hard. Thanks to his consistency, after 3 years, he could finally use the barriers to attack. He named this the offensive barrier technique. After years of eating bland food, he tasted monster meat for the first time after proper purification. Teen Blake continued working hard, and with time, he learned to manipulate his barriers in every way possible. As he's telling the story, a monster appears from behind, but Blake effortlessly deals with it and continues to share that after fighting daily, he learned something new. The old man jumps into the sky and finishes the monster, demonstrating what he learned. The teens feel terrified of his strength, but the protagonist remains humble. They finally understand the reason behind his strength, and Clara is amazed that he's not complaining despite the tough background. The old man believes they can grow stronger if they just follow his footsteps. The girls doubt that, but Sven calms himself down and becomes determined to work hard. Blake notices a few salamanders approaching, so he orders the teens to deal with them by giving their best. They all scream in fear. The Royal Magician Corps members keep calling Lancelot amazing for his expertise and strength. They believe he has no flaws, but the guy remains humble. They continue gazing at him, and after they leave, he discusses their behavior with his men. Lancelot believes he's nothing special, but his men call him a modest guy since everyone relies on him. Lancelot feels weird hearing so many compliments just because he has a bit more talent than others. These days, he's gaining strength at a fast rate but feels purposeless, since the Demon King is already dead. Lancelot gets no chance to experience the thrill of real fights. He likes the peace but wonders why he has to continue keeping up with everyone's stupid expectations. The guy sits in his chair and gets informed that some nearby village is under attack by monsters. Lancelot reads the letter and guesses he should just send a few rookies to deal with it. He checks the list and chooses the protagonist's party. At the dormitory, Sven begins stressing, like usual, while the others try calming him down. Blake offers some water, but Sven screams in frustration, wondering why he's so calm. The old man reminds him that fighting monsters is not new for him, so the teens cheer up as well since they trained hard for such moments. Someone makes fun of Sven's party, but suddenly Lancelot appears and orders everyone to take formation. The red-haired commander shares the details and orders them to be in squads of 4 and continue coordinating with others. The march toward the village begins. After a few hours of continuous walking, everyone starts complaining about the situation, so they all get 30 minutes to rest. The rookies finally get to catch their breath, but someone yells at them to get up and help the squad members relax. Since they have no choice, Sven and the others distribute fruits and begin massaging the squad members. At night, they end up staying awake because of guard duties. After 7 days of the same nonsense, Sven realizes he's going to die if he continues any further. The other teens start looking pale as well, but the old man remains calm and offers some water. They feel surprised, so he reminds them such situations are nothing new for him. They all guess he can't be compared with normal people. Sven notices there are no other rookies besides his group. The squad members jump in with their cocky attitudes and share that the rookies ran away already. They start teasing the old man and throw weird insults at him, but Sven and the others stand up for Blake, which makes the bullies angry. They decide to teach the rookies a good lesson, but Lancelot intervenes and scares them away. Lancelot warns the rookies as well, so Blake apologizes and thanks the guy. The commander doesn't see anything special about Blake, so he wonders why Gunther lost so pathetically. He guesses the protagonist might be hiding something. After 14 days, the army finally reaches the village. Lancelot confronts the village chief and hears everything closely. The chief bursts into tears and hopes the commander takes care of the situation. At the village, the teens finally get to rest and take a break. Someone calls the squad leaders to gather as Lancelot comes back from the meeting. He believes the chief is lying since there are no women in sight. Lancelot assumes the monsters are already threatening the villagers, so he orders everyone to remain cautious and not use the village's food resources. He believes they're going to get ambushed at night and asks if anyone else has to share their opinions. The brain-dead squad leaders have nothing to say, but our protagonist raises his hand since he has something to say. The other leaders begin insulting him for raising his voice, but Lancelot stops them as he just wants an honest opinion, even if Blake's a rookie. The protagonist doubts they can save the hostages with such a strategy, so he believes they should attack first. Lancelot reminds him of the situation, and the others think it's impossible to locate the monsters in such a short time without the villagers' help. But Blake confidently reveals his detection technique and demonstrates its abilities. The technique helps him detect the shape and movement of anything he wants, so he's confident it will help him locate the monsters. They call him a liar and frustratingly remind him that barriers are only useful for defense. But Blake becomes serious and uses this technique to share what's happening behind him without looking. The men are shocked, but their tiny brains are still unable to comprehend such a small thing, so they continue to complain. But Lancelot believes him, so he assigns Blake's squad to deal with this and rescue the hostages. The men object, but Lancelot doubts the rookies can do anything, so he thinks it doesn't matter what they do. He announces the operation will begin during the night and orders everyone to spread the instructions. At night, Blake's squad starts the important mission. Sven is surprised the commander entrusted them with something so important, but the girls assume Lancelot probably thinks they can't complete the task. They ask if the old man knows what he's doing. Blake assures them his detection technique is great, but they'll have to move around for it. They're all shocked to hear he can do so much. Clara thinks the old man is impressive. She starts blushing and wonders why she feels so excited around Blake. At the village, soon after everyone goes to bed, monsters begin their ambush and sneak in to kill Lancelot while he sleeps. They try attacking, but he wrecks them and feels disappointed to see it's just some weak monsters. All the other squads resist the ambush as well and easily beat the low-level monsters, but suddenly an army of level 4 orcs appears from the jungle. The monsters start shifting the tides as they destroy the commander's army. The humans get cornered, and as they're about to die, Lancelot destroys the orcs and questions the whereabouts of the other monsters. An orc lord jumps in and terrifies the men, but they believe their invincible commander can handle everything alone. Lancelot jumps into the sky and unleashes his strong magic. With a single blast, he deals with the orc lord in mere seconds. His men gaze at him like usual, but Lancelot remains cautious and assumes there's definitely a leader behind all of this, since orc lords have no intelligence. Out of nowhere, something appears and shocks him. Inside a cave, Blake finally finds the hostages. The teens free all of them and help them feel safe. Blake hears something, so he leaves everything to his students and rushes inside. At the village, Lancelot hesitates once the huge monster with an immense aura appears in front of him. The other men believe it's a level 8, which means they don't stand a chance, so they cowardly leave everything to Lancelot. The huge monster begins attacking and challenges the captain to maintain his reputation and show what he's capable of. Since the commander used his magic just a moment ago, he doubts he can unleash any more than one attack, so the guy begins feeling hopeless. His men keep cheering for him, so the captain feels confident again. He believes he'll win, but the monster humbles him real quick by landing an attack. The evil monster moves forward to finish the fight, but Blake jumps in at the right time and shields the commander with his technique, leaving everyone shocked. Blake managed to stop the attack of the Great Axe, leaving the boys shaken. My guy then turns to Lancelot and begins to heal him. It comes as a shock to Lancelot that he's using holy magic, because he previously thought he could only use barrier magic. The hero clears the air, affirming that it's a barrier healing technique, which uses purification and detection properties to stimulate and regenerate the body. The giant's eyes glow with fury, and he lifts his axe and smashes it on the barrier multiple times. Blake asks Lancelot if they have any chance to win, to which he agrees, only if he uses high-level magic. Despite needing time for rest, Lancelot also informs him that the giant needs to let his guard down in order for it to work. The hero has an idea. He will create an opening and fight, which throws off Lancelot. With questionable judgment, Lancelot wonders how Blake will battle with his barrier techniques. But instead of telling him, the protagonist demonstrates it. His body glows, and he braces himself as he jumps through his barrier. The giant is baffled by this strange move and gets kicked off by our hero, landing to the ground. Witnessing the situation, the boys are shaken as Blake manages to knock the giant down. Embarrassingly, the giant gets up and yells at him to lower his ego. Angrily, he is about to attack our boy again, but he has it all planned out. He distracts him with his barrier magic, and Lancelot uses his high-level magic. The boys cheer for him, and Lancelot's eyes emit fury. Using all his magic, he blows away the giant. The giant surely didn't see that coming, and lies dead with a huge burnt mark on his chest. Seeing the monster dead, the boys celebrate with joy. Meanwhile, the captain doesn't even have enough energy to stand on his feet. That's when our boy steps in and helps him get up. He acknowledges how well Lancelot performed, and he gives the same compliment to our protagonist. The boys surround Lancelot, pushing Blake to the side, making our hero insecure about his performance and passing comments like the captain could have won without his interference. Hearing that, the captain gets mad and tries to stop them. But our boy is mature and handles it like an adult. He explains that the captain probably didn't need him, but he's also just a human at the end of the day, and highlights the importance of fighting together side by side. One of the boys grabs Blake's collar out of anger, but with a strong grip, the protagonist removes his hand and firmly guides him that their captain is a human with a heart. Realizing how strong the grip is, the boy frees his hand and gets going with his mate. Blake sighs, and later on the hostages are sent back to the village. Even the chief of the village apologized, as he felt threatened, and the identity is never found of the giant Barbarossa. Despite it all being solved, a shadow lingered. After returning, the girls seem pretty exhausted. Meanwhile, Blake gets called for a drink with the captain. The sudden invitation looks like an inconvenience, and Lancelot apologizes for it. But our protagonist assures him that it is his first time getting invited by someone, so he feels the opposite of inconvenience. Coincidentally, it is also the captain's first time inviting someone. Sensing a tone of formality, Lancelot urges him to relax. Blake agrees, and the captain calls in for a toast. With that said, they continue to celebrate the night. The next day, our protagonist feels refreshed after a day off and takes a walk around town. He feels grateful to the hero Alice for his new life. As he's indulged in his thoughts, he gets hit by a cloaked woman. Instantly, he wonders if she's okay, but she grabs his hand and takes him with her. On the other hand, the knights look around for her, panicking about where she could have run away. Hidden in an alleyway, she apologizes to our protagonist for dragging him into this mess. But soon enough, our boy realizes who she is. She takes off her cloak, and it is none other than Alice. Warmly, she greets him, but he is more curious about why she is being chased. She proudly admits that she ran away from work, where she has to meet dozens of people. Cherry on top, she has to prepare documents and respond to fan letters. She miserably yells that he doesn't even understand the struggle of it. Etta and the others were forced to work too, but they got comparatively lesser tasks. So, she ran away. Blake realizes that she needs a break and asks her to hang out with him, to thank her for everything she has ever done for him. She happily accepts and takes him to her favorite point. Then she takes out 2 lunchboxes, which contain the sandwiches she made. Seeing 2 lunchboxes, Blake wonders why she was carrying both of them. Still, they brush it off, and the first bite makes him realize that she is a wonderful cook. Alice admits that she's domestic, which she thinks is weird for a hero. Before she strolled on the path of becoming the hero, she had a simple life as a village girl with no special powers. One day, she received the blessing of the goddess Altria, and that was the day she became a hero to defeat the Demon King. A girl who never even held a sword before had to undergo harsh training, but now she loves swordsmanship. When she thinks about her training, she remembers the hardships she faced with just a few companions. But since she has already defeated the Demon King, there are only a few monsters left, which means peace after all. Suddenly, Blake rises to his feet, saying that he's just an old barrier mage who has been taken for granted multiple times. Alice surely didn't see the trauma dumping coming, but soon enough, he confesses that all he ever wants to do is to protect Alice. He also admits the reason for putting up barriers against the demon realm, to protect everyone. Now he wants to protect Alice too. Hearing that, Alice gets nervous as she's already a hero, but the protagonist affirms to her that Alice is a great person. She feels warmth in his words and admits that she was a little frustrated. Later on, they return to the town, bid farewell, and plan on hanging out soon again. But behind a wall, a cloaked man looks at our hero and under his breath curses him to die while looking visibly furious. Gunther loses his mind after he's informed that he is being transferred to the Mabel region. He protests that it sounds like he's being demoted, but those were only the consequences of his misconduct and abuse of authority. Not just that, he's caused commotion in the training unit too. He can't be covered up anymore. Despite being a noble and a great mage, all that doesn't matter anymore, because now nothing can be done for him. The other guy realizes how absurd it was to team up with him. Then he orders Gunther to start with the Borderlands. Gunther can't contain his rage after he realizes he's been cut off. All eyes are on him as he walks in the hall. The humiliation follows him as everyone gossips about his demotion. Hearing the gossips and chit-chats, he yells angrily to keep their mouths shut. But his rage is visibly apparent as he begins to destroy the hall with his magic. Later, he gets kicked out and he tries to defend himself with his only label. He's a high-ranking noble. But in reality, he should be grateful that he's just being fired and not imprisoned. He miserably wonders why he is being treated like trash out of a sudden, but his cries go unheard. An idea pops up in his mind. The lady hero would probably know his worth. He fell in love with the first time he laid eyes on her, and he wanted to be the captain to be her companion. But she never noticed him. The reason behind him getting ignored was no one other than Blake. That made him despise our hero. That made him look for our hero everywhere. But he ended up seeing Alice, his crush, but with someone he despises, Blake. He thinks to himself that he deserved to be in Blake's place, laughing and hanging out with Alice. Seeing Lady Hero with our boy crushes his dream of being with her, and someday, making her his bride. So now, when he sees Blake, he curses him to die, out of jealousy. His plan is clear. He will kill Blake and take Alice. He laughs sinisterly, thinking that she belongs to him. The next day, all the students are lined up. After all the units are assembled, the captain orders them to guard the VIPs and the city for the soon-to-come Demon King subjugation event. Then, he announces the assigned positions. Blake wonders what position they will be assigned for. After the announcement, everyone turns back and looks at Blake and his mates, Therese, Clara, and Sven. Suddenly, they realize that they have been appointed as the escorts of Lady Hero and her party. The gossip follows them about the trainees being the escorts for Lady Hero's party. It comes as a surprise that it was the captain's and Alice's recommendation because they performed well during the monster attack. Blake has not only defeated Gunther, but he's also highly trusted by Etta and Alice. Then, the captain raises his hand, signaling that the decision has been made, and everyone needs to start right away with their responsibilities. Later, Blake and his mates stand outside Alice's room. Sven is visibly nervous, as he felt nauseous just even thinking about the responsibility. Therese and Clara urge him to get himself together, while their own legs shiver. Gathering all his guts, Sven decides to walk in. Inside, Alice and Etta are happy to see them. Meanwhile, Therese, Clara, and Sven can't believe their eyes that it's the Lady Hero and Lady Etta in front of them. Blake meets them normally and apologizes for keeping them waiting. Etta and Alice make small talk with Blake, which makes his friends realize that they are actually friends. Later, when they sit down, except for Blake, all his teammates are nervous. Etta and Alice assure them that they need to relax and they won't mind it. Despite them looking kind, they look really scary to them. Meanwhile, Blake is happy that they got recommended by the prestigious party. All of his mates can't help but think that they assumed Blake as an ordinary person. But it's quite contrary to what they first thought of. A night gives Alice a thought, that maybe only Blake is the one who is capable among them. They seem weak, like novice magicians, and it would be better if they are replaced by better mages. Hearing that, the three of them get even more nervous, thinking they aren't of any use. But Therese stands up, pleading to let them have this duty. The other two stand with her, assuring that they are more capable than what they look like. The knight sighs, informing them that they will be tested. He explains to them the rules. If they are able to land an attack, they will be the victors. The knight also assures that he won't be using any magic, which seems like they are being looked down upon. Their faces emit rage, and they throw their attacks on the knight. But swiftly he dodged them, and Sven can't fathom that the knight dodged them all. The knight admits that they have been trained by Lady Walburga, so there's no possibility that they can lose to magicians. Walburga is a genius when it comes down to swordsmanship, who can battle magicians easily. The knight then walks away, saying that he can't let the powerless humans be the escorts. On the other hand, Blake inquires about the ceremony and its date. Alice tells him that it's going to be in 3 weeks. Then, our hero assures the knight that he will train and make his mates strong till then. The knight agrees, saying he will evaluate them once again 3 days prior to the event. Blake's teammates agree with motivation. Meanwhile, Alice and Etta root for them. The knight doesn't really have hope, considering how short a period of time they have, but they assure that they will train extremely well. A while later, the teammates are seen getting chased by monsters in Mecha Forest, screaming that they are not ready to meet death just yet. As they run for their lives, they're screaming that a level 3 monster is impossible to defeat at their current levels. Meanwhile, Blake urges them to do their best, as running away won't make them stronger. Sven realizes that the monsters won't stop chasing them, so he throws his fire magic. But the monster dodges it and tries to attack him with its axe. Sven dodges it by an inch, and they all come down to the same question: how to beat the monster. Blake loudly advises that they have to come up with a plan, or their training will be of no use. Suddenly, a monster almost attacks Sven from behind, but using his barrier magic, Blake saves him. That's an assurance from Blake that he's standing to protect them. Finally, the three of them get some motivation to start again. Remembering what our hero said earlier, that he can only teach barrier techniques, so they have to use the abilities they already have, they quickly enhance their physical attributes. They dodge the attacks of the monsters, and whenever the monster lets its guard down, they attack. And after a good amount of teamwork, they take down the monster and happily celebrate their first success. Blake looks at them from above while they discuss that their teamwork will help them get stronger. On day 2, our protagonist takes the three on a hike to enhance their physical abilities. By day 3, he challenges them to read their opponent's movements to predict the incoming attack. And just like that, days pass. The day of their evaluation arrives, and the knight stands in front of the three to see their capabilities. Motivated, the three of them admit that they definitely are stronger than last time. The knight notices their overconfidence, wondering if they will soon be met with reality. With that said, the evaluation begins, and Sven attacks first, but the knight swiftly defends, calling his attack worthless. But Clara attacks from the side, defending Sven by saying that his attack wasn't useless. For the knight, it isn't a big deal to dodge another attack, but he notices that they have physically grown stronger. The knight can't help but acknowledge that their teamwork is admirable. Meanwhile, the three of them are breathless, knowing how strong the knight is. The knight mocks them, wondering if this is all they have, so they decide to give it their all, as there is no other option left. In a blink, they surround the knight, showing their newly achieved magic. Then, they emit their attributes, surprising the knight, as it is intermediate level, which he didn't expect from these three. But his quick thinking saves him, and he dodges it. Sven lies on the ground, thinking about how the knight even managed to dodge it. Alice exclaims that it's over, while Sven and his friends are on the verge of crying, as they have run out of magical power. But Blake assures them that they have become this strong in just 3 weeks, and they should be grateful for that. To their surprise, the knight walks up to them, announcing that they have passed their test. They don't get it, because they lost to him. But the knight assures them that their magic power was impressive, which managed to land some damage on him. They have grown admirably great in the last 3 weeks, and they'll do great as escorts. Our protagonist walks in and congratulates them, while the three of them happily celebrate that their hard work didn't end up in smoke. Meanwhile, Alice and Etta think they look like a master and his disciples. They feel secure with Blake and his teammates, confident that the ceremony will be completely safe. But Etta informs them that there have been some chatters going around, so she hopes everything goes well. The day of the subjugation ceremony is here. The hero's party arrives, and there is a huge crowd full of fans. Sven, Clara, and Therese know that they have to be very attentive. The two of Alice's companions are in another carriage, which Blake notices. Suddenly, Alice and Etta come to talk to our protagonist, but he turns them down because he wants to focus on his duty, knowing that he can't fail. Earlier, the knight informed them that the hero and her companions are being targeted to be killed, as there have been quite a few assassination and kidnapping attempts on their aides. The knight orders them to protect them with all they have. So Blake stays more observant and alert, knowing the threat. Amongst the crowd stands Gunther, and out of fury, he makes a run at them. He stopped right there while Blake sees that it's Gunther. The knights are ordered to show no mercy if Gunther resists. But Gunther has only one motivation: kill Blake and steal Alice. A knight approaches to stop Gunther, but Gunther attacks him, leaving the people panicking. Within minutes, the crowd is gone. Etta quickly comes in to heal the knight who has been burned by Gunther. Suddenly, the three of Blake's teammates attack Gunther and hold him back. He yells for them to let go of him, but they manage to put him down on the ground. He sees our protagonist, and he begins to curse him. He angrily uses his fire attribute, screaming that if Alice won't be his, he will burn everything to the ground. He manages to throw an attack at them, but Blake's barrier saves them all. Gunther spits out hate for our hero, but Alice sadly wonders why he is being such a villain. He pleads for her to come back to him and talks about the day when they confessed their love for each other. Alice is boggled, as they have never even spoken to each other much. Gunther screams that he needs her love back. Meanwhile, Etta feels sad for him as he's being delusional. Suddenly, the lady hero turns to Blake and begins to clarify that she has never even dated before, and our hero is baffled. Then, Alice announces that the attacker has been arrested, and everyone is assured that nothing bad will happen now. Everyone begins to celebrate again, and the lady hero is glad that they hired escorts. Blake is just happy that he could be of use, along with his teammates. When they reach the ceremony, Sven can barely hold in his excitement, and it gets embarrassing for the girls. Because of Sven, they are getting noticed, but suddenly, they get approached by someone wondering if they are enjoying their time here. When they look back, it is Etta and Alice, looking extremely beautiful. Everyone is in awe of their beauty. Even Blake can't help himself and acknowledges how amazing they look. Alice blushes while Etta just thanks him. Then, the captain walks in, saying how well they performed out there. But our protagonist is down to earth, so he shifts the topic to Sven and the girls, who performed better. The three of them feel proud, but Sven gets cocky over it. Then, Blake turns to Clara and praises her for her performance too. Alice wonders how our hero got closer to Lancelot, and they just glance at each other. Later, all of them enjoy their evening while Sven, Clara, and Therese are getting noticed as shabbies. The nobles look at them like they're not humans, but rather some junk, making Blake feel uncomfortable. But Blake brushes it off, wondering where Wall and Rua Hermina are. Etta tells him that Wall doesn't want to participate. Meanwhile, Hermina wanders off with some nobles, but our hero feels assured that he will get to meet them soon. The dance begins with the jazz band playing incredible music. Alice gives her hand to Blake for a dance. Despite the fact that our protagonist has never danced before, she still grabs him, telling him to follow her lead. They both share an amazing time while dancing. Meanwhile, Etta and Clara gaze at them. Then, the protagonist gives his hand to Etta for a dance, and she happily gives her hand to him. Seeing them dance, the captain smiles, which Alice notices. Even the captain can't believe he can smile, giving the credit to Blake for his changed behavior. Alice and Lancelot both believe he's mysterious yet special, as almost everyone gets easily influenced by him, for better or for worse. Lancelot catches on that by that, Alice meant Gunther. Yet, Alice is still worried about what will happen to him. The captain says that his punishment will probably be beheading because he was caught up in his obsession rather than his affection. That assures Alice a bit. A few days later, Blake and his team are informed of an expedition to another country. Etta and Alice nervously chuckle while blaming it on fate. The purpose of the expedition is to inform others about the Demon King's defeat and the whole situation. Etta adds that it's also to show off Hendria Kingdom's power. The two lady heroes request the barrier mage to take care of the kingdom in their absence. Then, Etta whispers in her ear to let her be dependent on him once she's back. He laughs and agrees. After a moment, they bid farewell. The captain knows that this is the first time the heroes' party has left the royal capital since defeating the Demon King, and he hopes nothing happens. But a glimpse of Gunther is caught, with a sinister smile across his face. A week after the heroes' party left, nothing really happened. Even after several weeks pass, Gunther is still rotting in the cell. Meanwhile, Sven, Clara, and Therese are going through harsh training. Sven wonders why they don't get missions, but just training. Clara and Therese know that missions are going to be tougher than training, but Sven needs to check his physical abilities, hence he wants to go on some missions. Suddenly, Blake looks angrily behind him, and Sven thought he offended him. But it turns out that a massive wave of miasma is approaching, and our boy sensed it. The captain and our protagonist know that they have to be there now, so they go over to check what's up. What they see startles them. The entire town is under the spell of miasma. A kid and his mum are about to be engulfed by it, but our hero raises his barrier magic to protect them. Then, he uses his barrier magic to the point he raises a barrier for the entire royal capital. The captain notices that the miasma is fading, but that's because of the barrier our boy put up. Thanking him, the captain wonders how long the barrier can stay up. Blake informs that he can keep it up for another few months, but he can't use the magic infusion type magic circle, and time is short to use a wide area formula. Suddenly, they both notice some attacks in town, which are the doings of evil mages, wanting to erase the entire town. The captain hurriedly orders Blake to put up a shield, and the knights to take care of their assigned areas. It's still not clear if it's an invasion from another country, or someone trying to rebel. On the other hand, Sven, Clara, and Therese are panicking, unable to decipher what to do. Meanwhile, the captain and his crew are trying to save civilians. The three of them guide people to hide, but the evil mages spot the royal mages and decide to end their lives. They almost end up attacking Sven and Therese. Now, the three of them put up their teamwork and take down some of the mages. They realize how easy it is to take down enemies in comparison to Blake's training. But soon enough, they get surrounded by evil mages again. Having no other option, they decide to fight back. They manage to take down multiple mages. That's when Clara sees a child who is about to be attacked and instantly runs to save him by standing in front of him. The attack lands, and Sven and Therese are shaken, thinking that Clara got bombed. But to their surprise, the barrier mage saved her and the kid, along with some other civilians. The civilians are confused seeing a barrier around them. Even the captain is baffled by this sudden barrier. He looks back at Blake, who has put up a barrier on every civilian to protect them from the evil mages. Therese attacks an evil mage who was trying to strike Clara and the kid. Then both of them run to Clara and the child. But Clara affirms that she is protected by the barrier that Blake put up. Sven looks around, wondering where the old man is. They are surprised to see that barriers are covering almost every civilian, and the three of them are impressed by the barrier mage. The captain orders everyone to keep fighting and stay within the barrier. But the rebel army is greater in number, and the king could be in danger if their numbers keep growing. The captain inquires about the troops from the Magic Corps, but his companion informs him there are none. They can't even leave this place, or else the citizens would be in danger, and it will take time to reach the castle. So he orders the castle to be left to the Night Corps and Blake, while the rest handle the situation here. The companion realizes how trustworthy Blake is. On the other hand, the knights scream to keep the bandits out of the castle, but somehow, despite all the knights, they make their way in. What they don't expect is the castle being covered by barrier magic too. As they stand in front of the castle, they get slaughtered by the knights from behind. The knights thank Blake for his efforts. Meanwhile, the bandits try their best to take down Blake and his barrier magic, but he is too powerful. Suddenly, a huge hand grabs Blake's leg and pulls him down, smashing him into the ground. But Blake gets up without a single injury on his body. It turns out that among the bandits was also Gunther. Blake wonders if this rebellion was his doing, to which Gunther screams that he cannot be spoken to like that by a high-ranking noble. He looks bloodthirsty and yells that he will kill our protagonist. But Blake maintains his composure, as he is a nobleman. Our hero wonders what Gunther is doing out of jail, and Gunther mentions some of his supporters. But that doesn't matter to him. He is here to kill our protagonist. Blake still can't wrap his mind around why Gunther would do this. His opponent blames him for the whole commotion, saying he was demoted because of Blake and sent to the borderlands. Not just that, but Blake also managed to snatch Alice away from him. But Blake thinks this entire thing is karma. If only Blake had lived seriously, this wouldn't have happened, and Alice herself affirmed that they were never lovers, so it's better to take accountability for his own downfall. Hearing that, Gunther grinds his teeth and declares that he will burn Blake to death with the help of his supporters. Then he commands them to attack the barrier mage, and they all charge at our hero at the same time. Despite all the attacks at the barrier mage, he manages to pull a barrier and defend himself. The rebels keep going with the full strength because they are being ordered by Gunther. Blake is defending himself as much as he could. But then comes a point where his barrier couldn't hold it anymore, and it shatters. Gunther sees this as an opportunity, and urgently commands the rebels to attack right away and not stop. The protagonist then elevates, which gives Gunther an idea that Blake is trying to make an escape. But the hero only counters the attacks with his barrier magic. Sinisterly, Gunther smiles and wonders if his power is diminished, because he's also using his magic to save the royal capital. He also laughs at him, thinking Blake will die saving people whose life isn't worthy of survival. But our hero disagrees. He gives the credit to the people for his success. The righteousness makes Gunther even angrier and attacks him once again, which Blake manages to dodge. Swiftly, Blake moves, taking down a bunch of rebels. Confused, Gunther looks back, wondering what Blake just did. It is a mobile barrier technique, which comes in different fonts: offensive, defensive, and healing technique. Hearing that, our boy's enemy once again screams to tell him what power is, which is so incredible, because the only thing he previously knew was barrier technique can defend and only holy magic can heal. Gunther can't fathom how Blake used it, but Blake trained hard to reach the level he's at right now, which the enemy takes as a mock. So, he attacks our boy once again, and Blake as usual dodges it while taking down more of the rebels, until only Gunther is left. Our hero urges him to surrender, but Gunther has something left with him. A glowing crystal that he swallows instantly, which according to him, makes him invincible. He originally wanted to use this with Alice, so that she submits to him, but Blake won't let him do that, which makes Gunther angrier as our hero tries to be Alice's protector. He gathers his newfound power and throws at Blake, but he manages to protect himself with his barrier magic. There is a big blast with his new magic, and he doesn't stop unleashing attacks on the barrier mage while cursing him to die. Gunther laughs again, poking at our hero to show his calm tone now. But even after he unleashes a huge attack at him, Blake still stands. Yet, Gunther is confident that he can still take him down, considering the barriers are useless now. When he attacks our hero again, his attacks are countered by none other than his teammates, Sven, Clara, and Therese. They come running to him, informing him that all the rebels have been defeated and the magic core can handle the miasma. Now he can fight with all his strength together with them. Gunther furiously yells that they will all die along with the old man. But something is different with our hero now. Since all his magic is coming back to him, he is ready to face his enemy. His teammates are in awe of his magical power. Gunther feels threatened and tries to gaslight our boy into thinking that he will never win. He attacks him, wondering if Blake has finally died. But Blake walks out unscathed, making Gunther feel even more threatened, though he decides to keep attacking. His attacks fall completely useless, despite being top-tier magic. Our boy then uses his barrier magic to trap Gunther, who nervously screams to be let out. Inside the barrier, Gunther is attacked by the barrier magic and he screams in pain. Then, he falls to the ground, unable to accept his defeat, wondering what barrier magic even holds. Blake walks up, saying barrier magic is to protect everyone, and Gunther lies on the ground motionless. Then, his teammates run to him and Clara hugs him. She's happy to see him safe. Finally, the captain arrives and sees that Blake is okay. There is a cursed device that Gunther was carrying, which emitted all the miasma. They can't believe why Gunther would carry it, to which Blake informs them that he said he had some sort of support. All the strange events had just started happening too. But the captain brushes off the topic, as they have saved the royal capital. He thanks Blake for it. A few weeks later, the king appoints our hero as the court barrier mage. This was a new position, but Blake's efforts are undeniable. Everyone celebrates, and the protagonist still can't believe that he has been granted an official status. They all begin to head to Blake's debut. When he steps out, he sees a huge crowd gathered to see the man who saved their town. Our hero waves to the crowd while they all cheer for him. Later, he feels absolutely exhausted. He still can't believe what happened, and the room he is sitting in. He thinks it's not bad to have a little confidence in himself, as previously he believed his magic was utterly useless. So now he decides to spread it everywhere. That barrier magic is a power that protects everyone. He can even train people in barrier magic so that more and more people can be protected. The story of a barrier mage who changes history, and the story of a hero who is cursed.